Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome to Tag Tuesday. Today I'm doing the History Reading Challenge tag. I was shouted out by Justin, aka Ghostreader, over on his channel. He is one of the sponsors of August's History Reading Challenge. I believe this is week 2 of the History Reading Challenge. I'll leave a link to his video down below, and from there you can get to the other people involved in the History Challenge. I am not participating in the challenge directly, but certainly I support the reading of any and all good history. And so I wanted to do this tag because, like I said, he was nice enough to shout me out in his video. So I wanted to do the tag. So question number 1 is what first got you into history? And I almost like to say that I am just a natural history person, that history is something I can never not remember being interested in. From the first time I saw a chess set and I played medieval, knights and jousting with it and stuff like that, I think I've always been interested in history. But the reason for that would be that my dad was a history teacher for a brief period of time and has really been kind of a deep reader in history for his whole life. So there are always history books on the shelves. There was the American Heritage, American History books, which are big picture books with all kinds of cool pictures of the American Revolution and the Civil War. And he had a lot of Civil War books on his shelves. I think I read the Bruce Catton Civil War trilogy when I was way too young to understand everything that was going on, but I felt like a big shot reading it. So I would say probably my dad is most responsible for getting me into reading history. Question number 2 is your favorite history book. And then, your favorite history book. So my favorite history book is a book I've mentioned several times on this channel, and that is this book called The Beauty and the Sorrow, An Intimate History of the First World War by Peter England. And the reason why this is my favorite book is because it does exactly what it says. It gives you kind of an intimate glimpse at World War I and the lives of regular people. And the thing that interests me most in American history, I think on the whole, are the lives of people. Now it's hard to find, or it can be more difficult to find, books about the lives of regular people, but they're definitely out there. And I think these give some of the most valuable insights into, just almost what it's like to be a human being. That, you get to read the words or understand the experiences of people who live through oftentimes extraordinary events, and how it impacted them, and how it was just a part of their everyday life. So that, in the end, you get to a point where you're always thinking, how did people live through that, or what did they do during that? And you realize that maybe in your own life that's happened to you as well. So prompt number 3 is the most anticipated history book that's coming out tomorrow. A new kind of biography, history of William Faulkner and race relations in the Civil War, comes out. I believe the author's last name is Gura, and I think it's called something like The Saddest History or something like that. Ike is barking at my son. Thank you, Ben.
Sorry.
It's alright. You didn't do anything. It's just Ike being Ike. So that would be my most anticipated book coming out. Question number 4 is your favorite time period from history. And I'd say my favorite time period from history is the Cold War, in large part because I think the events of the Cold War are the ones where we can see the most clear impact on our lives today. So the Cold War, as it involved the United States and the Soviet Union, and as it kind of affected and impacted nations all around the world, is probably my favorite time period in American history to read from. The follow-up question to that is, what book are you looking forward to reading from that time period? And that book would be... book would be Fault Lines, History of the United States since 1974, which will, cover Cold War issues and things that came after that. I've had that book for a while. I've been meaning to get to it for a while, but, how that works. Let's see. Question number 5, favorite time period you would like to know more about. So to be honest with you, time periods are really not the thing I think about when I think about history. I think about places. I have a tendency to be more interested in a place at any point in time than I am in a specific time period. So to answer the question most directly, I already mentioned the Cold War is a time period that I'm interested in and obviously would like to know more about. World War I, a topic I'm really interested in, but places I'd like to know more about England, Scotland, Scandinavia, Iran. I'd like to know more about Vikings, Sub-Saharan Africa, which is a reading area of mine, Japan, Tibet. Let's see. I have some books on those subjects that I like to get to. I have The English and Their History by Robert Toombs, which is a humongous book about the history of England. I want to get to SPQR about ancient Rome. I forgot to mention that's a book that I'm interested in reading. So it really is more places or groups of people that I'm more interested in reading about than time periods. But I do have my favorite time periods as well: Cold War, World War One. Let's see, favorite person from history. I'm just going to give what many will see as a cop-out answer, and I'm going to say George Washington. And I realize that Steve Donahue is no big fan of George Washington, and I realize that any founding father is inherently problematic because, like many founding fathers, George Washington was a slave owner, and he was, in fact, a racist because people of the time period certainly were. And that doesn't forgive them, by the way, and I've mentioned this before. They themselves knew better. They were aware enough to be uncomfortable with the wrongness of slavery, and yet they continued doing it. Unlike Jefferson, Washington does emancipate some of his slaves, even though he also pursued slaves who ran away fairly ruthlessly. But I like Washington the best of the founding fathers because to me he's the one who's the most self-made man of the group. Now, having said that, he was certainly born into a certain level of Virginia aristocracy, or he could have never risen to the level he was at. But he didn't have the advantage of that education of an Adams or a Jefferson or people like that. He was more like Franklin in that regard. I like that he had regular workaday job. He was a surveyor for a while. He did that work. I like the the many military mistakes and the few but significant military triumphs he had. I think are great. I think he was the ideal first president of the United States, in part because he took a fairly restrained view of what he was supposed to do, with the exception perhaps of the Whiskey Rebellion. I think he rightly warned us about the danger of factionalism and its impact on our democracy. So I'm just going to go with George Washington because he's the person to have an answer for. Question number 7, topic you'd like to see more books about. I'm just going to go with books about sub-Saharan African countries that are written by historians and not by journalists. A lot of times the books we get and the books that I've read, like We Wish to Inform You That Tomorrow Will Be Killed with Our Families by Philip Gorevich, that's actually written by a journalist, and a lot of those books, particularly about the Congo and what took place in places like Sierra Leone and Liberia, are actually written by journalists and not historians. King Leopold's Ghost being an exception there, but I'd like to see more nonfiction books written that take that as their topic, that are written by historians. Problem number 8 is, what non-book resource do you like that helps you learn about history? Well, I used to really like looking at online journal articles that you could find through JSTOR, so I'd say JSTOR, but I used to also have access to JSTOR for free because part of my teaching assignment is I worked for a community college and I got free JSTOR articles there. I don't get that anymore, so I don't get to use that as much as I want to. Prompt 9 is your favorite history quote or fun fact. I'm just going to go to a quote that I saw on Wendy's channel. Her channel is Booknerd TV. I'll leave a link to it down below. And her comment about history was that the present has a past. And I think that is an incredibly important thing to keep in mind. So many people today want to discard the past and yet are concerned about the present. And what they don't seem to realize is that everything that we see happening in present-day politics has a past. Our politicians have a past, sayings have past, the parties have past, and that to me, this is just a way of saying that history matters. When I used to teach history, I usually said, we study the past to understand the present, and so we can make better decisions for the future. That's kind of the gimmicky answer I used to give, but I really like this, the present has a past, and I tried to find out who said it, and I couldn't, so I'm just going to say that Wendy said it, and I liked it a lot. And then prompt number 10 is to shout out a tuber. Shout out a booktuber who reads history. And I'm going to shout out Heidi from My Reading Life. She had really, she reads a lot of history, and she has, and I think she's still working on a project where she's going to read a biography of every American president. I don't know if she's finished that or not. I don't think so. But she does read a lot of nonfiction, and a lot of that nonfiction is history. So I'm going to shout out Heidi from My Reading Life. All right, there you go. There's the history. There's the Reading History Book Challenge tag. I think I got the name right. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.